Thanks very much. And in fact, Ali Rogan's going to be chairing this session, but I just wanted to say a few words just to say how pleased we are to host the Dementia Housing and Working Group on the HousingLIN website. And this session is, I think, the fourth Ali that we've run in partnership with you, and they've all been excellent sessions, and I'm sure this is going to be no exception. And most importantly, this one coincides with Dementia Action Week. But for those of you who aren't aware, the Housing LIN were the secretariat to an all-party parliamentary group a few years back around housing for people with dementia, questioning whether we were ready. And what's so nice about this session is we're not going to look necessarily at the policy and the design, but we can look at the fun issues and why living with dementia is not about a decline. It can be an opportunity for people to live well with dementia for longer. So without further ado, Ali, can I hand over to you and thank you for putting together a fantastic session for us this afternoon.
Thanks, Jeremy, and thanks, Sally, and thank you for everybody that's joining us today for our dementia-friendly fun webinar. It isn't about policy, and hopefully it isn't going to be boring. I know it isn't going to be boring. So my name is Ali Rogan. I've been involved with the Dementia and Housing Working Group since it was formed, actually in 2009, I think. We've developed things such as a strategy for easy access to dementia-friendly design and technology information and guidance to support the APPG report on housing for care for older people report. So dementia, housing, health, care, technology have been an important area for me since actually 24 years ago I started working in the field. And coupled with that, I chair the Dementia Friendly Technology Group. Next slide, please. So just a reminder, who is the Dementia and Housing Working Group? Well, we aim to promote and influence the contribution of the housing sector in improving the health, well-being and quality of life for people living with dementia. We think we're the only group focused on housing and dementia, and we definitely aren't a talking shop. We bring together lots of wide group of stakeholders and volunteers, and we have an action-orientated ethos. For example, we recently updated and launched the Dementia Friendly Housing Guide in March. You may remember the original charter that was launched in 2017. It contains a series of actions split into people, process and place, and things to talk about and think about. In particular, we want to encourage organisations to make or improve existing action plans in order to future-proof their organisations and services and sign up to deliver a number of the actions. And we've also, just a reminder, we've got the Dementia Information Hub. That's your go-to place for dementia-friendly guidance. So both links are there on the screen, so have a look if you can. Next slide, please. So why dementia-friendly fun? Well, when we talk about dementia, we often focus on risk, decline, care, negative, but incredibly important, of course, but rarely do we talk about joy. We know the stats, don't we? 1 in 3 of us born today will go on to develop dementia, and it is still the biggest killer ahead of heart, respiratory, and strokes. But you can live well with dementia, and that's what this webinar is about. Fun is not the opposite of professionalism, it's the foundation of well-being. There's a growing body of research showing that dementia-friendly fun can have a positive impact on well-being, confidence, quality of life, helping people stay socially connected, reduce loneliness, and support emotional well-being. A recent study showed that 5 in 100 cases of dementia worldwide could be linked to social isolation in later life. So activities such as music, games, arts, reminiscence, movement, conversation, culture can lead to improvements in thinking skills, mood, day-to-day functioning, and may even help slow cognitive decline. So it's all about creating moments of joy and connection, but it's got to be person-centered, hasn't it? Based on someone's interests, strengths, routines and personality, rather than simply focusing on the diagnosis itself. Next slide, please. So the role of housing. I'm always amazed when we get asked, why is housing important, as dementia is often discussed through health and care. Everyone lives somewhere, whether that's their own home, rented home, care home. So why on earth shouldn't it be critical as part of the conversation? And we know that 70% of care home residents and 1 in 4 hospital beds are occupied by someone with dementia. There is the frailty and dementia included in the first set of conditions to have modern service frameworks developed as part of the 10-year health plan. But I just hope that all the recent political comings and goings don't push it off course and the timescales don't go out the window, which of course may have happened to the long-awaited national housing strategy. But let's not talk about that today. So next slide. This webinar explores what our housing environments could consider if we design them not just to be safe, but based on fun, connection, and moments of light. Today, we're talking about why dementia-friendly fun matters, the role of housing as a place of connection, joy, and belonging, and ideas on how to raise everyone's understanding. So I'm really pleased to welcome our fantastic speakers, as you can see on the screen. And we're going to start with Dr. Cate Pemble. She's a research fellow of dementia and aging at the University of Stirling and has a particular interest in how age, disability, and class come together to create or frustrate opportunities for connection, creativity, and care. Over to you, Cate.
Thank you so much. I don't need the slides, so if we want to make me big, you want to make me big on your screens, that's totally fine. We're going to start personally, because I think it's the best way. The year that my nana died, my granddad decided to grow award-winning fuchsias. Now, this man had never in his life, as far as we can tell, grown fuchsias at all. He'd done plenty of garden, he was very good at it, but award-winning fuchsias was going to be the thing. And it took him about 2 years, and he won an award. And then that was enough. He put that down. He didn't do it again, which is fine. And as he got a little bit older and his cognition wasn't quite as good, we started having conversations about where he would like to live in the future, because he was still gardening. It wasn't award-winning gardening, but it was still gardening. And he said to me with his entire chest and a straight face that he could never go into residential care. He could never go into supported living because he likes gardening too much. Now, boy, howdy, did he pick entirely the wrong person to throw that at, because the work that I do means that I know that if you were going to pick a single hobby that you could probably facilitate in a care home in the UK, it would be gardening. We've been putting it in there for about 15 years now. And he knew that. He knew that because I've ranted about it before. He knew that because he'd been the almoner at his working men's club. So he'd been visiting people a long time. But he had this idea in the back of his head that gardening, that hobbies was not a thing that you could do if you moved into supported living, if you moved into residential care. And I thought that was really interesting. Interesting too, because the work that I did on the Designing Homes for Healthy Cognitive Aging project, which looked at how home design could support people to stay in the homes and communities of their choosing for longer, focused on identifying scalable options for design that could help move the pressure off potentially failing systems as you age. Now, that could be for a lot of different reasons. It could be for stroke, it could be for gradual impairment, or it could be for dementia. And what we found is that there was a real lack of knowledge, a couple of places. One, in what older people wanted to do, in what lives they wanted to live. And in the chat while I'm talking, I would love you to put in, one, a hobby that you know your grandparent or great-grandparent had, and two, a hobby that you have. And I will continue wittering while you do so. Now, we did a huge amount of research on DHWG to look at scalable and sustainable home design. What could we do feasibly in new builds, in retrofit, to help people live in the homes that they chose for longer? And we pulled in, it's about 13,000 people's data in the kind of big secondary data analysis, the numbers folk, and about 700 people who spoke to us directly. And out of that, what we found was a huge number of people looked at aging as the thing that happens over there. It's not me. And to be very clear, that this is sometimes popping up when we're doing interviews with people solidly in their 90s. I'm not old. She over there is old. And you're going, baby, you are 90. If you are not old, you're running out of people ahead of you on that particular escalator. But old is over there. Old is small. Old is the thing that, I don't want to live in a granny flat. We heard this a huge amount. I don't want to live in a granny flat. I don't want to look like my grandma's house. To be so clear, not what we were suggesting at any point, but it was so strong that it came up again and again and again and again and again. So we started asking, what is it that people wanted? What did they hope for? And by and large, people wanted a home that could be flexible, that could change as their life changed, as their hobbies changed, as their interests changed, as their physical capacity changed, that they could feel safe and secure and warm in. So we folded all of this data in and we made VR designs, because I could show a bunch of architects a bunch of blueprints and they would 100% understand what those meant. But I, as a non-architect, cannot read a blueprint, and I'm willing to bet that most of you can't either. So rather than test our designs with architects, we put older people and architects and designers and builders in VR headsets to do a little bit of a walking tour. And we gave them all exactly the same prompt. We said, hey, you're going to jump in here. I'd love you to take a look around. Tell me what you like, what you don't like, what you notice. If it's coming from your professional background, great. If it's just your personal, perfect. What was really, really interesting is that no matter what prompt we gave them at the beginning, older people, bang on message, really, really focused. Would I want to live here? Would this be somewhere that I wanted? Professionals would start there, often really strong, and over about an hour would just gently drift into a professional headspace. And by the time we get to the end and we say, listen, you've given some really great feedback. We're so, so grateful. Thank you so much. If I went away and I did every single change that you said on this checklist, would you then live in this home? And more often than not, the answer was, no, not for me. This is for like older people. And I'm not a medical doctor, but I'm pretty sure you have two options. And one is to get older and the other one is to die young. And most people don't fancy the second one. So yes, this is for us. But that gap between what we want, what we think we want, and the life that we think older people have is really, really important. Now, it's got a lot of reasons behind it. One of which is when we talk about design specifications and best practice, we get really, really focused in on risk assessment. We get really, really focused in on activities of daily living and independent activities of daily living, which are really, really important. They are, can you feed yourself? Can you do your personal care? Can you move about your home safely? They're very, very important. What they're not are generally the things that make life worth living. They are not knitting, they are not dominoes, they are not playing cards, they're certainly not keeping hens, they're not doing any of the actually incredible, I will have a little look through, making cocktails. They definitely don't include making cocktails. They don't even include things like hosting. So when we start to think about what's possible in design, we have to break out this idea that shoving people into smaller and smaller boxes is the way forward. What we need is a two-pronged approach, because there is always going to be the big A adaptations that are needed. The building has to be designed with a certain width of doorway so you can get a walker through. Sometimes people are going to need a lift. Sometimes people are going to need a hoist. That's going to happen. But there's a huge number of little A adaptations, the ones that people don't call adaptations. And I can say this for a fact, because the number of times I went into an interview and we went through the consent form and I said, excellent, you know why I'm here. You're happy to take part. Let's do it. Icebreaker question. Can you tell me about some of the adaptations you've made to your home? And people went, oh, I haven't done any of that. And your heart kind of sinks into your chest at that point. Then you change the question. You say, you know what? Could you tell me, what was this house like when you moved in? Completely different. Oh, it was completely different. I've changed so many things and they'll take you through a whole list. They'll take you through flooring changes and contrast and raised beds, but none of them are real adaptations because they're not designed around our ADLs and our IADLs. They're not designed often around our very core survival tasks. They're the things that make life worth living. And what I would like to ask you, especially as you've thought about your hobbies, is what age are you planning to give up the hobbies that you do? In our DHWG team, we had 15 or so people, and some of them had some very intense hobbies. We had a lot of mountain bike type people. When are you planning on giving up mountain biking? And if you're not, what are you going to start to do? Where are you going to look for information? What are you going to start to tweak to make sure that you can do what you need to do when the time comes, when your body starts to need more help? How can you start to offload the pressure from the systems that are struggling to the environment around you? I'll drop some resources in the chat because that's useful, but I think it's a wonderful question for us to have, and I'm so excited about the entire panel today, which is going to really dig into it.
Thank you, Kate. That was really good. I love the making cocktails. Have you had that one before?
Cocktails, I haven't had. I did once get rather berated because a lady did medicinal botanical paintings, which are apparently, I had to Google it later, very, very detailed, very fine lined, and absolutely would not be moving anywhere without natural light and space to paint. You go, this is all accurate. This is all fair. We had other people say, you know, oh, I'm really into my quilting, but I'm also really into being married. And my husband says if he steps on one more square of quilting fabric, one or the other will go. So starting to think about not just how do we plan for, can you use the bathroom, can you use the shower, but what are these other hobbies and how can we start to shape the space around you to fit them is going to be key. And it's going to be key if we want our lives to continue as they are and not into some imagined smaller version.
Yeah, yeah. And so what kind of questions should architects, designers, and other professionals be asking if they really want to create homes that support people to enjoy their lives in later years, but not just meet basic needs?
I would say a really good one is, would I live here? Would I live here? Would I live here? Would I have lived here 10 years ago? Would I have lived here 5 years ago? Will I live here 10 years in the future? Because the space that you need to park up your Zimmer frame or to put your wheelchair in, it's pretty close to the space that you need for a buggy. You know, the issues that you have bending down to put plug sockets in, so having raised plug sockets or having enough plug sockets, huge if you're older, pretty important if you're working from home. There's a lot of places where we can cross over, and there are specific things, thinking about contrast, thinking about light, thinking about design. Of course, there always are. But I think the first and foremost is remembering that this is going to be you. And if you're designing something that wouldn't work for you or for your friends, you've probably missed the trick somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much. We'll come back to you in the Q&A. What we'll do now is move over to Mario. Next slide, please. Mario is Director of Communications and Marketing at Anchor and also co-chair of the Housing and Aging Alliance. And he works with members to bring about improvements to the housing and living conditions of older people. Mario.
Hello. And it's slightly intimidating to be on a panel like this because I'm really conscious that I am, and have people in the audience who are sort of dementia experts, because I'm very conscious I am not a dementia expert. My role in Anchor is communications, marketing, policy stuff, but I've always been absolutely amazed by the specialists who work with people living with dementia and how they use person-centered care effectively, and yet, sort of a few years ago, I realised I didn't really have the language to explain what was happening when I saw dementia in my own family, and there was very little out there to help me have a conversation with my kids about it. My uncle was living with dementia, and my kids could see that something had changed with him, and they wanted to understand why he always used to tell jokes, and basically he eventually started telling just the same joke over and over and over again, and the joke got longer and longer, and I wanted to be able to explain to them what was going on with him. I didn't want to give them like a medicalized answer. I didn't want to sort of soften it into something that wasn't true, and I didn't want to make it frightening. And I had all this sort of stuff going around in my head, and one day I woke up with these two kids in my head, Scarlett and Bournemouth, and they basically became Scarlet Buckling in the case of the missing pictures. It's a children's detective novel where 12-year-old Scarlett tries to solve the mystery of what's going on with her gran, why her gran is distressed and confused. And in the book, Scarlett kind of takes on the role of a detective. Initially, she believes that if she can just work out what's wrong with gran, she can fix it, she can make her better. And obviously she works out that you can't cure dementia, but what she learns is that person-centered care, certainly this is the way kind of she starts to think about it, is that it's a bit like being a detective. It's about listening and understanding what makes people tick. And it's when she and her sort of sidekick Bournemouth listen to her gran, and finally, eventually, they sort of learn a secret about her background, that they work out what kind of care and support she needs. And my background is journalism, so I kind of wrote the book like a journalist, really. I went out and talked to people. I spoke to people living with dementia. There's a fantastic group called the Pathways Group at Bradford University that I talked to people on that. Karen Harrison Denning at Dementia UK was really, really helpful. And I think she's on the call now, actually, Kate Morris, who's one of the dementia specialists at Anchor, who was an absolute superstar, helping me, just basically listening to me asking endless stupid questions, really. And the thing that came through really clearly, particularly when I was talking to people who were living with dementia, was that they wanted the story to be real. So I realized kind of once I'd started this, just how difficult it is to try and get the balance right between being honest and real and trying to write something that a 12-year-old or 11-year-old is going to want to pick up and read and see as a fun thing. And so I felt this enormous sort of responsibility to kind of get that balance right. And what I've learned through going out, so the book was published in July. I've probably talked to about 1,000 kids about it now, so various events around the country with schools. What I've learned most is that kids are actually living with this stuff in their family lives all the time. My sort of starting point is often I'll get kids at the beginning of the sessions to sort of put their hands up if they know someone who's living with dementia. Generally, I would say about a third, and this is I'm normally aiming at children who are sort of 9 to 12. About a third will put their hands up, and so that it was really striking that this is a part of their lives already, and yet there's practically nothing out there in terms of books or kind of their experience, sort of stuff that they're seeing that can help them learn about it. One of the striking questions I got is that I've had a couple of times is kids will say, "Is it catching?" And being able to, so my fear was that I was going to kind of create this book that might kind of worry children. And actually, what I think it's done is it's given them a language and a kind of permission to talk about something that they're experiencing in their lives already, but maybe they haven't always got the words to talk about or the kind of permission to talk about. So it's been really fantastic to see how it's sort of landed. And there was kind of two reasons for writing it. As I say, one was because of my uncle, and I wanted my kids to sort of understand what was going on with him. The other one was really as a kind of an acknowledgement, a thank you for all the people that work in this sector, because most people don't do it for the money. They do it because they're really passionate about it, and because it makes a real difference for people. I'm really conscious that there's a workforce crisis. We've talked forever about how we tackle the workforce crisis in social care. Well, I kind of think one of the ways you do it is that you show what the impact that people can have when they are working with older people. We've got housing for later life is expanding fast, and there's a huge demand for it, and care homes too, and it's really important that we kind of foster the workforce of the future. So I wanted to kind of create something that would hopefully give kids a real but fun and uplifting and positive kind of understanding of what was going on with dementia, and using that detective theme felt like the right way to do it. So throughout the book, so Gran's a big fan of crosswords, and so there's lots of puzzles related to crosswords. And I do this thing where, I don't know if you can see in the book, there's the chapter titles are all sort of written, you can see this here, all written like crosswords. So they've got letters missing in the crosswords. I do this thing where I say to the kids, the publishers have completely messed this one up because there's letters missing in the title. And obviously there's a bit of a if you start following through what the missing letters are, it sort of spells out a bit of a clue. So it's all about kind of creating this inquisitiveness and encouraging children to basically sit down with their own relatives and ask them questions, ask them about the stuff that matters to them, and exactly the sort of things that that was being talked about before in terms of hobbies, and you realise where the connections are. So yes, so the book's out there. Royalties are going to Dementia UK. So I can't do a talk like this without doing a quick plug to say, please, it's available from all good bookshops and including Amazon.
Thanks, Mario. Would you put the slide up, Sally? There we go. So that's I guess that's you when you're talking to.
Yeah, so that was various events around the country where we got sort of kids involved in doing exercises and puzzles and stuff linked to the book.
And what's been the reaction from the children and the adults, indeed?
It's been great, really, really positive. The kids are what's striking is just how quickly the kids embrace it. There's no taboo with kids. You know, they're just interested, and as soon as you kind of start talking, they will ask, firing a million questions at you. Every time I've done it, I've had different questions about, and they're just inquisitive and just want to know. So I think the high point was probably getting fist bumped by a class of kids in a library that I when I did a talk. That was quite good fun. But yeah, the response has been really, really great. It's just really nice to be able to talk about something that to break down those taboos, or realise that with kids of that age, actually the only taboos are really with the adults rather than the kids.
And somebody's put oh, is this yours? I can't remember. Scarlet Buckling and the Case of the Missing Picture. That's another book.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
Is that another book or yours? No, that's another book. So yeah, we'd love to for you to put your link on, please. And I guess it's really useful not just for children and families, but for housing providers to have lying around, or to share amongst their team members.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the hardest things to write, when I discovered trying to do this book, is that obviously there's no one experience of dementia. There's the saying, isn't there? If you talk to one person living with dementia, you've spoken to one person living with dementia, and so I will try to make it as clear as possible that actually there's options and families that are kind of working through those options. It's about having conversations. So hopefully it does. Yeah, absolutely. In terms of organisations that are supporting people living with dementia, hopefully it will help kind of facilitate some of those conversations.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, and we'll come back to you in a minute. Let's move on to Asa Johnson, National Resident Experience Manager at Anchor. I think he has worked in adult social care for 15 years, focused on older people and people living with dementia through community programs and care homes. And apologies if you can hear the thunder and lightning going on outside my window. If anyone's in York, yep, we've got the thunder. So over to you.
Thanks, Ali. Hi, everyone. I'm Asa, as Ali says, and I work for Anchor, so I'm one of Mario's colleagues. And I'm not saying this because I'm his colleague, but the book is fantastic. So a big thumbs up from me. I'd highly recommend it. Everyone has started off today actually talking about their experience. I'll just start off that very, very quickly. So my experience in dementia care is both professional but also personal. So I'd like to start there really with my Nanny Pat. She had dementia and her life was centered around family. She didn't really have any friends, had a very big family, so didn't really need friends, and wasn't a very sociable person outside of our family. And hobbies, it was watching sport, in particular snooker, darts, football, and also bingo. Absolutely loved the bingo. But if you invited her to the coffee morning at her retirement housing living location that she lived at, that was her idea of hell, not the fun that it was intended. So it's very much about understanding the person. And that's really what I want to explore today around what we mean when we think about fun and person-centred care. So we have 121 care homes at Anchor. And in November last year, we launched our care services dementia strategy. As part of that, we introduced 4 new dementia specialists into the team, and one of those was Cate, as Mario mentioned, who's on the call today. So hello, Cate. And in relation to today's topic around fun, I really want to discuss about how the strategy was developed with fun at its core. Fun's not an optional extra when it comes to dementia care. It's a fundamental, no pun intended, part of high quality care. Now, I appreciate today's subject is, my subject is, at least, is around a dementia care strategy for a care home organisation, but actually the principles of the strategy go across the whole of the sector. So hopefully you'll see that in terms of how it could be applied across different organisations and specialisms. When we think about dementia care, and as Ali mentioned earlier on, often we can think about safety, about routine, about clinical need. And those things are really, really important, and they are embedded within our dementia strategy. But from research and from my own personal experience, actually, emotional well-being is critical to good dementia care. Fun is individual, like I say. Gave that example of Nanny Pat earlier on. My idea of what fun is may be the complete opposite to your idea of fun. And we've seen lots of examples shared in the chat earlier on during Cate's presentation. Living with purpose is key to emotional well-being. And through that, we can start to explore fun. So when we launched our dementia strategy back in November, one of the goals was to drive consistency across the whole of the group, 121 care homes. Now, we can't do that with the build of our care homes because each of Anchor's care homes is very different number of households, different floors, different environmental design. But actually, it's about driving consistency with the through dementia inclusive environment. So thinking about having themed areas and items out for people to interact with, the stuff of life. And I'm really looking forward to Joy's presentation a bit later on, where she's going to talk about how they've explored that at her location in a bit more detail. But what we can do, so with the environmental, like I said, the build we can't do, the dementia inclusive design we can do, and we can explore how we can support people through fun in terms of what that looks and feels like on an individual basis. But actually it's about looking at how we can share what the vision is around dementia care within our organisation and drive that consistency through that collective vision, and people understand what direction that we're going in. People are at the heart of what we're doing, and that's how we achieve those goals that we have throughout the strategy. Our care homes can receive training and support and coaching from their dementia specialists, but to really, really get that sense of fun, we need to understand the people that are living in our care homes, and we do that through life stories. And that's really where our strategy has started, making sure that we have really, really detailed life stories to help us support the people that live in our care homes in a really personalised way. We can make sure that our interactions are personalised, that the care is designed around the individual, that we can design meaningful and enjoyable moments and experiences for people as well, understanding who they are. Now, there's loads of different life story templates available online. We've got our own that we use, but there's some fantastic resources across the sector that you can download and use. So I'd highly recommend that and help that to sort of drive what you're doing in terms of that person-centred care. And we really want to make sure that we're focusing on what people can do and not on what they can't do. Often that can be the default, that actually this person can't do something anymore because of the dementia. Well, actually, it's about them that still being core and important to who they are. They just may interact with it in a very different way. And again, going back to Cate's presentation, all the things that you shared in terms of your hobbies will be important to you throughout your life. If you were to develop dementia, actually, they will still be important to you, but the way in which you engage in those things may be very different, and we should support people to continue to do them. Now, we're really keen to adopt and use validated and researched dementia care approaches as part of our strategy. So different innovations, resources to really enhance that dementia care that we're offering. And one area we're really keen to look at is that sense of comfort. Now, fun doesn't replace comfort. Comfort doesn't replace fun. Actually, they support each other and actually enhance in both areas. So we're currently looking at the option of sensory objects for people living with dementia, and that sense of play as well, because that brings laughter, surprise and creativity to people, and therefore fun. But we also know that for some people, having a calm and reassuring environment is essential. So we would look at other aspects of fun for those individuals. So making sure, again, that we're very much thinking about the person and not a group of people. Developing our colleagues in our care homes is key to this as well. It's important that we have planned groups and events and sessions for our residents to join. But actually, we need to understand that joy doesn't run by a schedule, that we can have moments of joy throughout a day. There can be spontaneous moments. And again, the way in which we create those is by understanding the people and going back to the life stories that I mentioned earlier on. This year, we're celebrating NAPA's Year of Culture, and this gives us a really fantastic opportunity to strengthen our focus on personalisation. It helps us to understand identity, expression and connection, and that all drives fun. We've had live music and music from all around the world in our care home so far this year. We've had art gallery visits. We've had cultural food experiences, intergenerational activity. One of our care homes has even built a mini museum based on local history. And all of these things can, again, really drive a sense of fun. We've got lots of opportunity as well throughout the year to explore that even further and really develop an understanding of what culture means when it comes to both our residents, but also our dementia care. We also introduced dementia coaches in each of our care homes, and now the dementia coaches are our ambassadors for the strategy. They'll really lead on that change and that person-centred care within their care home. And they can be any role in the care home. So it's the home manager will nominate that dementia coach or maybe 2 dementia coaches, and it's based on their passion for good dementia care. And as they lead on that change, hopefully they'll have a lot of fun along the way. So to just wrap up my part now, fun is not an optional extra when it comes to our dementia care strategy. And as we continue to embed that strategy, we'll continue to promote this message. We're not supporting people to live, we're supporting people to live well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Asa. I like your comment that we need to understand joy doesn't run to a schedule. That is so true. In terms of your dementia coaches, you touched on a little bit about them, but how are they involved? What motivates them? How do they keep involved?
So what we felt really important with the dementia coaches at first is that they had to self-nominate. So they would speak to their home manager and say, look, I really want to take this on as something that I do within the care home. They filled an application form in, and then we had a forum with them to discuss what that would look like. But to keep them engaged, to keep them motivated, we need regular check-ins. They'll have regular check-ins with their dementia specialist. We've got our first dementia coach conference in June, which I'm really looking forward to. So we've got 3 across the country, which will be a great opportunity for them to meet other dementia coaches. We have a service improvement framework within Anchor called Inspire. So we'll support the coaches to use that as well. But I think it's really about making sure they don't feel alone. So using those regular check-ins, those forums, those conferences, opportunity to share ideas as well is really, really important. And that will continue to grow as we move through the strategy.
Oh, that's really good. Thank you very much. Let's move on to our last speaker, Joy Sumner, care home manager, the Watermill. Right. Yes, you're going to talk to us about a really, really interesting topic. And you've worked your way up from care assistant to home care manager, haven't you?
I have.
You say being part of someone else's life and learning about who they are is the most privileged part of your job. So let's hear from you.
Absolutely. So my name's Joy Sumner, as it's been said. I work for Housing 21 at the Watermill Care Home. I've got 36 years of experience, and that is within care homes and daycare settings. And I'm going to talk about the function rooms, community rooms that we've built here at the Watermill, why we've done it, and what inspired us to do it. So next slide, please. So there we go, there's the Watermill. We're based in Walsall and we're contracted with Walsall Council as a commissioned service. Next slide. So the Watermill is a specialist residential care home in Goscote in Walsall for people aged 65 and older living with dementia. Our home was received the outstanding rate in CQC in 2019, which we've maintained up to now. And it was the first residential care home for older people in Walsall to achieve this. The home itself is set up into 4 individual houses. A maximum of 10 residents live on each house. Each house comprises of a little lounge area, dining room, kitchenette, and quiet room. And they've got their own internal gardens as well as external gardens. Next slide. So when the Watermill opened up in 2011, it had several rooms that weren't really being used. They were just family visitors' rooms or arts and crafts rooms. Now, one gent at the time that used to come to the day centre when I was the daycare manager here initially, he used to come in and he used to say to everybody, "Oh, I'm back at the pub. This is the gaffer." Always introduced me as the gaffer. Could see I was in charge, but hence not actually a pub. But he believed he was at a pub. That's what he used to do. He used to go to work, come home, have his quick tea, go off to the pub, and that's what he believed he was doing. We also had another lady that used to be a landlady of a pub, and she'd often say, "Oh, I do miss the days. I wish I could still go to a pub." So one day after hearing this, and many of the residents on the residential side saying that they used to love going to the pub, and that was whether to celebrate, commiserate, everything used to be done back in the pub in the day, still is in a lot of occasions nowadays. So we listened and we decided, well, do you know what? Let's create a pub. So we raised the funds ourselves. We came in on our own time and we created a pub. You'll see at the bottom of these slides that there is some footage that people can go to have a look at some of the when the press came in to promote some of these services when we created the pub. So, what do we do in the pub? Afternoons and evenings are often spent in the pub with tipples of everybody's favourite drink, cheese and onion cobs, pork scratchings, crisps, pub quizzes, dominoes, darts, and the old songs such as Down at the Old Bull and Bush, etc. Next slide. So there we go, 2014, this is what was created. You can't see it very well, you can't see all of the room from the angle there, but you can see that was what the pub was like. And we had the mayor came and opened it officially for us. Next slide. We've also got a reminiscence room. This is another room that we created for comfort, but we felt it was very familiar for older people, a room where we can reminisce about the past, whilst encouraging stimulation of memorabilia, all different smells, all different textures. We've got sensory boxes in there. We've got an old suitcase in there with holiday memorabilia in, a bit of everything in there from the past. So people can go in, touch, see, smell, and just talk about things from the past. Next slide. This is our cinema. So from the pub, we decided to carry on and create more rooms. So there's our cinema. That was 2016 when we created this room. And again, there's more classic signs when YouTube awareness, Dementia Awareness Week. So you can have a look on those in your own time and have a look at the news press reveals when the press came in. Next slide. So there you go. That's the inside of the cinema. It's just about creativity, really. Again, decorating the curtains itself. One of our staff did herself. She took it home, got the old sewing machine out. And it's a good room. It's a good size room, and it can be very versatile. The chairs can be moved. So we do a lot of our training in there, but also a lot of our activities in there. Next slide. And here's how the hair salon was here when we came in, but we wanted to just give it a more reminiscence feel, retro feel to it. So we've used this room every week. It's used, but we also do pamper sessions in there, so spas, nail care, nail painting. We also, I remember the one year we had a resident whose daughter was getting married. Of course, she was the mother of the bride, and so we made it a really special day throughout the whole of the day, starting off in that room to have her makeup, her hair, and nails done, with some music in the background, and of course books fees. You can't forget the books fees. That's her special day as well, and it was absolutely fantastic. The daughter asked us, as you know, if we could support mum with that, and she looked amazing. Next slide. Another little room that we converted into a shop. This we find works really well. It gives residents a sense of purpose. They'll often come with a reminiscence coordinator and open up the shop, even if it's just for an hour. And again, it gives them that sense of work-like activity and that sense of as well as social inclusion, so which is good. Next slide. This is one of our quiet rooms off one of the houses on the residential side, and the staff actually did this, and they did it during COVID. Don't ask me how they did it, how they got the things to us, but they did. The room looks absolutely fantastic. Again, raised all the money themselves, and there's our 1960s diner. So again, lots of different parties we have in this room, lots of different events. Next slide. And that's just a reminiscence box that you can find in the reminiscence room. These are easy to create, easy to put together, especially if you know you can get things off eBay. One thing I did find, however, was some of the younger generation were pulling things out the box to talk to residents about, but didn't actually have a clue what they were, so couldn't promote that communication with the resident themselves. So what I did, you can see there's little cards in the box. So for every item in that box, such as carbolic soap, there's a little write-up about carbolic soap, where and what they were used for. So some of the younger generation can help connect with the residents, and talk about carbolic soap and jogging their memories as they go along. Okay. That's it. Next slide. I think that's it.
Oh, thank you, Joy. We've got so many positive comments coming on the chat there. Looks amazing. How fantastic to think of these things and make them happen. Very inspirational. You must have worked really hard. And you've done it all yourselves, which is just amazing. And can you actually, I don't know whether you do you will, I'm sure you do lots of surveys and questions and checking if everything's working well. What sort of benefits come out from those?
You can see that it helps the social interaction. You can just see when the residents come out. So the residents actually leave their little living quarters. Transport in any care home is always difficult, but they can actually put the coat on. They can come out of their living quarters. The staff will sometimes walk them around the block, so it actually it gives that impression that people are going out. Then they can come back into a different entrance. They can come to that pub, and you can literally see the difference. I remember the one lady, she always carried a little packet of cigarettes around with her, in her handbag. She'd often get them out, never, ever, ever thought about having a cigarette. But the first time she went into that pub, she opened a bag, and the first thing she did was just get out these cigarettes and go, has anybody got a light? So straight away, it just shows you how it had jogged that memory, because that's what she associated it with. And it's amazing. You can see the difference it has in the pub itself. They will have pub lunches. They'll go out to pub lunches. We've had family members, husbands and wives, have romantic dinners in the pub together. You can just, anything that was used for a pub, we can use, but you can really see the difference. The family members themselves, you can see their faces when they light up. They'll bring mom in and say, can you put a film on in the cinema for us? And they're more inclined to bring some of their younger generations, like children that might get a bit fidgety. They're more inclined to bring, because they can say, come on, we're going to take mom or nan into the cinema, and they're going to put a film on for us. So it has a multiple purpose of use.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. Somebody's asked in the chat, what is an internal garden?
Okay, so it is just a little internal garden that they can go literally from the lounge area, dining area, straight into their own little garden, which is safe, it's secure, and obviously they can do the gardening out there. They've got sun lounges out there, but it's just easily accessible and it's very, very safe.
Okay, marvelous. There's so many questions I could ask you, but we can't hog it. So I'm going to go back now into the panel debate, and we want to look at some of the questions that have come in and some of the comments. There's a question there for Cate, referenced VR to help people visualize plans. What practical tools are there to enable this to do it in an economical way?
So it's a really good question. A lot of them, I'm going to say, are common sense. And a lot of them are about knowing the gear that you have. So we used the Oculus, the Meta glasses, which meant that we could support people if they were standing and using it. They could hold their arms if they wanted to. They could walk independently if they wanted to. You can also set it up so that if they want to use it seated, they can. They can use it in a roller chair if they want to. I will say, not the risk assessment we were prepared for. We were very prepared for people being unsteady on their feet. Very prepared for that. Not prepared for how people lose all fear in a VR headset on an office chair, because there is a speed at which the borders come up, and sometimes they will move faster than that. So remember that. The other thing I will do is I will pop in the chat, one of my colleagues, Martin, and a bunch of the other people on the team wrote a chapter specifically on this. It's open access. So if you're interested in that, that's now in the chat as well. But a lot of it is just looking at multiple opportunities. So sitting and standing. We also had the capacity to put one person in the headset and cast it up to a big screen, so you could have a hamster as the person to be directed around, or they could navigate around it on the screen more or less like we have it on the website. So just giving multiple options. It does put a huge amount of the development pressure on the front end versus more traditional design processes, because you are having to make that all kind of front and center. But from everything that we were hearing from design professionals and from people who were engaging with it, potentially it was very much worthwhile to do that, because you were able to have much more kind of equal engagement.
And somebody, Martin's put, also worth looking at the web-based viewer that Cate shared a link for. Fairly easy to do for architects who are already using 3D software.
I will drop it in the chat again so people do not have to scroll.
Brilliant, thank you for that.
It's really useful. We know that there are some housing associations that are looking into using it, especially if you have a lot of stock that are of the same model, things like that. So it's worth looking into. Yeah,
definitely. And Mario, I remember you mentioning that you did a song, and you got in the charts. Not necessarily you, but your team. Tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, that was a long time ago now. But yeah, we wrote a song. We basically got lots of comments from our residents around the country, and we turned those comments into a song, which we then went around the country with a guy. I can't remember quite how I found him, but he was a very sort of cool, sort of punk kind of dude who went around with a recording equipment and recorded various snippets of the song from residents in care homes and retirement housing around the country, and we bolted it all together and released it as a single. It was a lot of fun. We raised a bit of money for it was Contact Like the Elderly that we did that for. But the great thing was it was just people get involved and people. Music is such a great. It unites people, doesn't it?
You're not going to sing us a bit of it now?
No, definitely not.
Not today.
No, I forgot my guitar.
But now, of course, you just stick it into AI and they'll write you a song with all your comments in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Asa, I want to know a bit more about the strategy. How on earth do you start with developing a strategy with fun at the heart? And it must have been quite difficult to get everybody's voices into the strategy.
Absolutely, that's very true. Yeah, we're a big organisation, and it was obviously it was a collaborative piece, so it's important to hear people's viewpoints. It was reviewing care plans as well to sort of see what was being said about people, what the sort of culture looked like within our care home. So it was a lot of work put into developing that, and then, like I say, developing the team, the dementia specialists as well. So yes, it's a big job, and I think it's now about embedding it. We've got some KPIs, but not too many, because I think sometimes that forces you to turn it to a tick box exercise, and that won't be fun for anybody. It's just nice data. I think it's about recognizing what people are doing. I think it's about sharing those stories from each care home, big or small, to really make sure that we can see that progress through the strategy. What the attendance will be like at our dementia coach conferences next month as well. That'll be a bit telling in terms of engagement, but also the feedback, most importantly, from the people in our care homes, as people living with dementia. What is it looking like to them? Are they seeing change? Is it, when we're saying about driving person-centered care, about that sense of fun and what it looks like for an individual, are they seeing that? Or is it just something we're talking about? So yeah, it's very early days. We launched, like I say, in November. We've had the introductions to the coaches in February, the specialists in February. So it's very early stages, but we're already starting to see those positives, that change, that engagement, and people wanting to be on board. That's the most important bit. People actually wanting to see that change. So yeah,
it's cultural, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't suppose you have a pub, do you?
We do, not in my personal home, no, but in our care homes, yeah. But I think that's important. I think for, again, what do people want? So enjoys location. Actually, it's something that's really important to the people living there, but it might not be in another location up the road. So it's about not taking that uniform approach to these things, but actually what do the people living here want to see and do.
Excellent. And Joy, in terms of I want to ask about the cinema, and I want to ask about everything really. But what's next on the horizon?
I don't know. We're thinking IT room in another one of our quiet rooms on the houses. So we can have country teas, cream teas, scones. So yeah.
Nice. Cate, so I asked you about what questions architects asks, but why do you think it's so important? Why do you think it always, not always, but sometimes gets overlooked in design, the fun element, and it just focuses on safety? Is it to do with regulation? It's to do with history?
I mean, I think a lot of it is regulation. I think some of it's history. I think some of it is also to do with how we feel and how we react. Because a lot of time historically, we've not actually been great at talking to older people about what they want. We tend to come in very late, and we tend to come in a place where we are ourselves full of fear, especially if these are older people in our lives that we care about very deeply. And being in that emotional space is going to make us very hyper aware of what risk is. It's going to make us very hyper aware of what risk is. The issue is that if we're pushing all of the conversations we're having about getting older and about what we would like to continue to do if we get older to that crisis point, we're naturally going to narrow that down. Whereas if we are able to be a little bit more open and accept that, there's two options, and if we'd like to stay on the planet, we're going to have to adapt a little bit. So what's that going to look like? Okay, I would like to be able to cook. So for right now, that might look like some extra under cabinet lighting in the kitchen to give you that visual acuity that you need. And then there might come a day where you're doing a bit more sous chefing rather than actually cooking. So then you are going to need a kitchen that can actually accommodate two people at the same time. And then it might get to a point where you would really like to be sat while somebody's cooking, but you yourself are no longer cooking. It's that flexibility. But you need to be in a space where you're not panicked. You need to be in a space where you're not in that high alert sense to even be able to think about those things.
Absolutely. And Mario, this serious topic that you've handled in your book, can you think what else we should be handling topic-wise in a children's, relating to children in the context of a children's book? Because as you say, it's just so inspiring that what you've actually achieved.
I didn't read a lot of children's books as a middle-aged man, surprisingly enough. But when I had kids, I started to sort of look around. I was interested in what they were reading. My youngest daughter is dyslexic, and so every night I would sort of snuggle up in bed with her and read with her for a while, and I loved it. She's 15 now. She's less keen. I still want to be sitting in bed reading kids' books because there's some brilliant books out there that really do cover quite big issues and do it in so, there's some brilliant writers. I'm a massive fan. There's a woman called Kath Howe, HOWE, who writes beautifully sensitive books that take. There's one about, I think, a girl who's her dad's in prison, and it's about kind of coping with that sort of stuff, and of course there's things like Monster Calls, which was all about kind of a boy whose mother is has cancer. So there's some brilliant stuff out there. There really is, but you have to. Interestingly, there isn't, apart from my book. I don't think there's anything much about dementia. But there is some really great stuff. It's just, it's not all, you have to look beyond David Walliams and all that sort of stuff to find the good stuff, I think.
I'm just going to say Gangster Granny. What a class.
Yeah.
I've just seen something in the
Ali, I
comments.
was wondering whether Mario could read a passage from the book.
Yeah.
Oh, Craig. Well, there's a bit, if you really want me to, I can read, I think it's, if I can find the right page, there's a section where they explain what dementia is to the kids. Would that be, do you want me to read that bit?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a short section. Okay, Sue is the care home manager. Okay, and by the way, Bournemouth is Scarlett's sort of partner. Bournemouth is called Bournemouth because if you're a big fan of Agatha Christie, Hercule Poirot had Hastings as his sort of sidekick. Bournemouth is just down the coast from Hastings, so that's why Bournemouth is called Bournemouth. Anyway, so Sue, the care home manager, looked at Bournemouth and then back at me. This will help me explain. She reached over and lifted a handful of dog-eared old novels from a cardboard box in the corner of her office. Imagine this pile of books is your memories, and she stacked them face down on top of each other on the little table. Your earliest memories go at the bottom because they're created first. And during your life, you build up more and more. Sue put one more book face down on the pile. At the very top, that's where your recent ones are, like what you had for breakfast or where you left your keys. Bournemouth pulled out his notepad and began to write down what she was saying. The thing about dementia, continued Sue, is that it can make your pile of memories wobbly, so the ones at the top can sometimes fall away. She gave the table a nudge and the pile of books shook. She nudged it again and one of the books slid off the top of the pile. It balanced on the edge of the table. It means that even normal things like the money we use can seem strange or confusing because you don't remember them. You won't become confused because a place has changed from how you remember it, or because you forget where you put something. Sometimes people can even be shocked by their own reflection, because they don't look how they remember themselves looking, finished Bournemouth. Exactly, said Sue. In your head, you might be 40 years younger than you look. That's just where they kind of start explaining what dementia, the experience of dementia.
Brilliant. Thank you. I'm just going to pick up on a couple more questions from the Q&A. Cate, this is the one you'd like to answer. Something we've seen more of is intergenerational housing and support models being commissioned, specifically within extra care housing schemes, with residents being from age 18 plus. Is this something that others have also seen? And what do you think the impact of this will be for people living with dementia who are living in these settings?
Well, I'm going to be a dirty little radical, and I'm going to say it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. No notes, no holes barred. We did quite a bit of work trying to figure out what it was that people wanted. And while there was a very small number of people who responded to us and essentially said, if I see anyone under the age of 50, I will scream, which good for them. Love that. Most people want to be in an intergenerational community. And there's a bunch of benefits to that interest and vibrancy and having people around. It's, to be fair, like the structure that we're much more used to, this age segregation where we're really split off depending on what kind of phase of life we're in, is a relatively modern invention. And if you look at how we tend to work within communities, we're intergenerational by facet. The person who takes in your packages when you're out at work, the person who makes sure all the bins are in or out, they're often not in the same age category as you. The project that I'm currently working on, which is around changing into generational relationships, which is looking at this kind of stuff, is looking at like, where are the benefits to this and where does building this in make sense? And the answer is a lot of places. And if we're thinking about what is the benefit to dementia, I would say take the label off. Because as someone riddled with the ADHD, which means I have poor short-term memory and really bad executive function, which also happens to be common to dementia, which was real fun before a diagnosis, by the way. The things that help deal with executive function difficulties help with executive function difficulties regardless of what the source of those is. The things that help you navigate space regardless of what the source of your difficulty is. So as we're looking at making communities that are truly inclusive and truly intergenerational, and accepting that not only is it a nice to have everybody in these space, but that people have a right to be where they want to be a part of their community, the better it's going to be for all of us.
Absolutely. Hear, hear. And Joy, there's a question here about involving residents in the design process. How did they give feedback on the designs, and did the team use any research evidence to inform the details of the design?
Yeah, we did. Like, so the cinema and the pub, we actually just looked up old pubs, the same with the cinema, what they would have been like many years ago. We didn't want modern ones. We wanted ones that would be more familiar to the residents, because we felt that was important. So it was just about asking family members and the residents themselves in their residents' meetings. We put feedback cards out and just asked what do they want to see, what activities do they want, what kind of rooms do they want. We still do that now. We did the same in care surveys that we do. We do a care survey. We put that out, anonymous one, every single year, so we can listen to people's voices. And it's just about listening to residents and their families.
Perfect. Thank you. Lots of comments, Kate. Intergenerational communities are not nice. They are essential. Makes total sense to me. Yeah, lots of people agreeing. I'm going to ask one question for everybody now, and I'm going to take you in the order that you have spoken today. A couple of sentences from each of you. Start with Kate, then Mario, then Asa, then Joy. What is the one thing you would urge every leader or person listening to this webinar to do when they leave this webinar in order to grow the sector's understanding of fun ways to enable people living with dementia and their loved ones to live well? Kate?
I think I would say the lesson is to remember that it will be you. It's going to be you at some point. And if it's not you directly, it's one of your loved ones. That's just the statistics of it. So the question then isn't, how do I avoid it? How do I make it not happen? The question is, how do I make sure that I can live the life I want as I get older? And if that's something that I want, let's go ahead and assume it's something that everybody else wants as well and act appropriately.
Absolutely. Thank you. Mario?
Obviously buy my book, obviously that. I think for me it's about the intergenerational stuff is so important for me, and I think anything we can do to encourage children to capture the stories and the life histories of their older, not necessarily relatives, neighbours, people, I think anything that builds that intergenerational connection builds empathy, and that builds understanding, and that is frankly the foundation of everything.
Yes, perfect. Asa?
Well, everything that Mario and Kate have said, to be fair, but I think it's about making sure that we prioritise fun, and that we make sure people feel they have permission to have fun as well. I think that's sometimes a bit of a problem. That hopefully, when we have this again, we won't have to say that in terms of permission, because you should have to have permission. But I think we're not at that place yet. So let's make sure people have permission, or feel the permission to do it, and make sure that every day is a day that's filled with moments of joy. That's where.
Yes, lovely. Thank you. And Joy?
Right, be creative. Listen to what people want. remember, it doesn't have to cost much. These rooms, yes, it might have cost our time, but when you've got enough passion there already, you know, it doesn't physically cost a lot to do. It does increase well-being, social inclusion, but above all else, fun.
You know, you don't have to be called Joy to have joy in your life, but I'm really pleased that we've had Joy here with us today. It's been fantastic, and every one of you, Cate, Asa, Mario, everybody has been wonderful. Thank you so much. There is more, there's a link. If you put the last slide on, you'll see the links to our previous webinars. I think the next one's going to be on the 4 nations and the differences of performance in terms of dementia between the 4. But we're in the, haven't started planning that. So if you want to get involved, do let me or Vanessa know. We'd love you to be involved if you want to be. And again, thank you so much for joining the webinar, and to our speakers again, to HousingLIN. Look out for the recording and the summary blog, which will be on the web pages soon, I'm sure. Thank you.
Yeah, and on behalf of the LIN, can we also thank you, Ali? It's been a brilliant session. And if this is the first time that you've joined us, do join us again next week when we'll be looking at inclusive design, which builds on today really nicely to coincide with Global Accessibility Day. So thanks ever so much, everybody.